Happy hump day, everybody, and welcome back to your source for fantasy hockey news and degenerate gambling breakdowns, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, big time edition, one of Steele and I's favorites. We're breaking down our top banger league beauties that could take your team to the promised land. Who are we looking at? You'll have to tune in to find out. Let's get this money.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy hump day, everybody, and welcome inside the lab to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. I am joined, as always, by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steele Rodin, and on this side of the microphone, it's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. My goodness me, training camps open, Steele. We're getting very serious now. Also, the cutoff for entries for our listener league is today. It's a big day in the world of fantasy hockey, Steele, and we know that today's episode is also brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's J-A-S-E medical.com. Steele, today's episode, banger league beauties. Guys that fill out the peripherals by bringing the body, block shots, and getting a little greasy. That actually, though, when you can rack up some of these studs who have, 150 plus hits, good blocks, and some PIMs, this can usually mean the difference for your team. We're looking at a number of interesting names: Dahlin, Miller, Crouse, Barbashev. Flipping it right over to you. You know that's what I do, baby. Banger League beauties. Who are you looking at? You know I love this conversation because these guys can really take your team over the top.
They really can, and this is why we talk about it every single season, a month beforehand. We love talking about these banger league beauties. I got a couple of honorable mentions. I have 4 guys on my list. Obviously, for me, the honorable mentions, like we talked about before we jumped on here, Brady Tkachuk, Matthew Tkachuk being 2 of them. I have a couple of other guys on the honorable mentions that we've talked about over the last couple of weeks as well. One of them being your boy, Adam Larson, who brings the hits, the blocks, and gets the offensive production a little bit as well. Jacob Trouba, another one who brings a ton of penalty minutes, hits, blocks, and shots on net as well. I'm also going to throw Tanner Jeannot in here for my honorable mentions. Had an absolute awful season last year with Tampa Bay and Nashville. Just very, very poor season after that 24-goal 41-point season the year prior to that. 130 penalty minutes, 215 hits. He still brings the hits. He still brings the banger league beauty in him, but he only had 18 points in 76 games last year. I'm going to try to, obviously he's not at the same caliber as Brandon Hagel, but Hagel had a pretty bad season when he got traded to the Tampa Bay Lightning as well. Sure. I'm hoping Tanner Jeannot has a little bit of a bounce back season, at least 30 points, but he's got that banger league beauty in him.
Oh, most definitely. He was a banger league darling when he came into the league, popped the 40 piece of points, and I think he was like second or third, or he maybe even led the league in hits that year. Yeah. That is kind of the prototypical banger league beauty right there. But the guys that I'm looking at, and I think the clear caveat here is the top 2 banger league beauties in fantasy hockey are the Tkachuk brothers. The amount of points that they bring, the amount of shots that they bring, plus the banger league side with the blocks and the hits and the penalty minutes. That's clear. Those 2 guys, we are focusing on some other players, so I don't want to see the hate, although we absolutely love the comments, the DMs. Keep bringing that fire. We really, really appreciate it, and the season hasn't even started yet, baby. And shout out to all our subscribers on YouTube, Steele. We cracked that 1K mark, baby, and we couldn't be doing it without all of you. And trust me when I say, and I said it before, Steele and I are just getting warmed up, and we'll be here all season long to make sure you're dominating your drafts. Okay, Steele. The preamble, the promo, it's done now. Tkachuks, they deserve that love. Let me throw some love to a guy that stepped out last year in such a big way. I've been talking about him a lot. I believe he's a top 30 fantasy piece. Rasmus Dahlin.
Yes.
15 goals, 73 points, 204 shots on net, 105 hits, and 132 blocks last year, Steele, and I'm not even counting 92 minutes in penalties. If you can get this guy on your team, He's got Hall of Fame written all over him. He was a first overall pick for a reason, and he was a little slow developing, but boy, oh boy, Steele, is he not here now? He's got the benefit of now having a real goaltender behind him, we think, in Devin Levi, a beautiful forward group up front. This Buffalo team's going to get wins, and I think Rasmus Dahlin is going to get his, and I mean hits, pims, and points, making him one of my favorite Banger League beauties, most definitely.
He is on his way to being one of the most sought out fantasy defensemen in the NHL right now. I knew he got a ton of penalty minutes. I did not know it was up to 92 minutes.
Right?
That's actually surprising.
Yeah.
And that right there in itself shows you the Banger
Eighth
League
in Norris
beauty.
voting, by the way.
Yeah, that shows you right there the Banger League beauty and the superstar hit him with the 8 Norris votings as well. I'm going to go to someone that you've talked about quite frequently over the last few months as well, and that's Lawson Crouse of the Arizona Coyotes, another Arizona player who just seems to get better and better every single year. Back-to-back 20-goal seasons, 45 points last year total, just under 200 hits last season as well.
Yeah.
He is back down to the fourth line with all the additions Arizona made this offseason and the young prospects they brought in. Dylan Guenther, Logan Cooley. They bring in Alexander Kerfoot for that veteran presence as well. So that may have some bit of an effect on his point total.
Sure.
But this will be the guy who answers the bell if anything happens to Clayton Keller, to Nick Schmaltz, to Logan Cooley, to Dylan Guenther, and all those other young prospects they've got, even on the blue line, JJ Moser, 6'4", 215 pounds. He is a beast, and he brings that offensive ability in him. He brings the Banger League beauty in him as well. Yep. And we've talked a lot about the Arizona Coyotes, and they're trending in the right direction right now.
Team on the come up. You kind of want to get a piece. I keep mentioning this. There's some really advantageous situations. Yes. We don't know about standings overall, but we like what we're seeing from a number of different teams here. The Arizona Coyotes have a lot of fantasy value to be had, and the astute GMs out there that know what they're talking about, they've done their research, they're tapped into the pod. They're not going to overlook these good situations, even if they are on bad teams, which obviously the Arizona Coyotes, we expect to come up, but they're still going to struggle. But I think about Lawson Crouse's Steele. This guy loves to hit. And the fact that he can also bring in that little offensive ability, I'll say this too. Lots of rookies and lots of flux going on in Arizona. Sure, he's currently pegged to maybe be down that lineup a little bit, but that could change very quickly. This is early days. We got training camps open. Steele and I are going to keep our eyes peeled on line combos, good situations, obviously injuries. We'll break it all down here for you. Lawson Crouse is a great pick, Steele. You can probably get him at the back end of your drafts to really fill out some of that snot on your team. Taking that one out of Treliving's book. But very quickly, before we get to the break, we got a few more players to come for the rest of the episode. Keep it tapped. JT Miller is a guy that you and I went back and forth here, and we're not talking about him versus Jack Hughes. We've had that conversation. We're talking about, and actually in banger leagues, you'd probably lean to Miller even more so, because this guy, and I'll give you your due on this one as much as we did disagree on that take overall, is underrated. Back-to-back seasons of 30-plus goals, 80-plus points, 200-plus shots, Steele, and 170-plus hits. He doesn't get enough love. I know he actually was getting a bit of heat for some of the off-ice antics or drama he was maybe creating in that locker room. But when it comes to getting it done silently, my man produces. Very, very underrated category filler in JT Miller, and probably a better team in Vancouver this year as well.
Definitely a better team in Vancouver right now. And going back to those off-ice antics, if that's going to be one of the reasons why you don't draft JT Miller, then you're just going to be losing your fantasy hockey league. You can't be putting that into the categories of not drafting him.
He's still getting it done.
He's still getting it done. He's 30. He'll be 31 years old next March, or the March coming up. So he's 30 years old right now. And he's really just getting into his prime these last 2 years and this next couple of years as well, playing with Pettersson and Kuzmenko and all those other guys. So I like this player a lot. He definitely has that Banger League beauty in him. We got a few more players as well. I'm going to head back out east to the New York Rangers, one of those other guys alongside Jacob Trouba, who brings the Banger League beauty in him. But we got some sponsorships we need to talk about.
Yes, we do, Steele, and I love that you're highlighting more Rangers blue liners. You know I love me some Rangers blue liner action. But today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. The Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you're not just hoping you have access to medication in emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional 20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Promo code LOCKED ON.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. We appreciate everyone who tunes in Monday through Friday. Thank you so much for getting us to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Continue to hit that subscribe button, the follow button, and leave a 5-star review. And like Flip said off the top, if you want to be a part of the Fantasy Hockey Listener League, continue to DM us. Today is the cutoff date, and we will be putting all of those names into a little draw. And we'll be picking 14 for both the casual and competitive league. So if you want to be a part of it, again, continue to DM us with your full name and email so we can get you added onto that list. I'm going over to my next player for Banger League Beauties out east for the New York Rangers. It isn't a defenseman, though. It's the second-line centerman, Vincent Trocheck, another player who brings a good variety to any fantasy hockey team. 65 points last year. Decent on the power play as well. Had 17 power play points, 182 hits, and 225 shots. And I want to mention this guy right now as well, again, because he has that Banger League beauty in him. He's got the penalty minutes to back it up too. But he's centering 2 playmakers in Artemi Panarin and Blake Wheeler. We don't know what to expect about Blake Wheeler, but both those guys are playmakers. They pass the puck first and shoot secondly, and that's going to do a lot for Vincent Trocheck in the offensive zone. Expect him to get fed the puck a lot from those 2 players. He's hard on the forecheck. He's not afraid to get nasty in front of the net. He likes to bang away. He will go after you in the corners to get that puck no matter what it takes. I love Vincent Trocheck for the middle rounds, maybe even 8th or 9th, because of the variety that he brings with those peripherals.
Most definitely, Steele. The fact that you're also bringing him up now, I think this is where you can start really getting the pieces to build out the team that you want. And a couple of the guys that I'm looking at as well, some of the peripherals don't always stack up, but if you can get the shots, the hits, at least a couple of them, in addition to some point value, that's what I think I'm trying to look at with a bunch of these players. Because, some of them do fill out the hits. They'll fill out the block shots, and maybe the offense isn't there. But a guy that I'm looking at in Andrei Svechnikov, a guy that I know you really, really like, I had to bring him up because when you said actually you didn't realize how high Dahlin's penalty minutes were, I don't think enough people realize how much this guy throws around the body and can bring 65 to even 70 point value offensively. He has 5 straight seasons of 115 plus hits. Last year, even being injured, 140 hits. And like I was just alluding to, the block shots aren't there, but 71 PIMs, 205 shots on net, and the offensive value. He's on track to be fully recovered, but the caveat here is, and I did really think he belongs on this list, first and foremost.
Yes.
But I think the main issue here is Carolina really struggles in the offensive end at times. We think with the healthy group, we think with some of the additions they made in the offseason, really balancing out this unit even more, Michael Bunting, Dmitry Orlov, this is going to be another really good team. And what's better than taking guys who fill out cats is taking guys on good teams in good situations. This isn't rocket science, Steele. Let's try and build these teams from the ground up, baby. And I think if Andrei Svechnikov is healthy, he fills out all of those cats so nicely.
Exactly. And I was saving the best for last as well. I also have Andrei Svechnikov on this list. So I'll just keep padding on to what you just said as well. Like you said, the fact that he had 140 hits, 205 shots, 71 penalty minutes, and 55 points in only 64 games. If he plays a full season, you expect all of those peripherals to boost up tremendously. He had surgery in March after his knee injury. Still listed as out on ESPN and Yahoo right now, but he's eager for the return. He's eager to return for the start of the season. He's been skating since mid-July, strengthening his knees, strengthening his legs, And we know this guy has that banger league beauty in him. Go back to the playoffs a few years ago when he fought Alexander Ovechkin. Definitely out of his weight class, probably shouldn't have dropped the gloves with the grade 8, but still, he's not afraid to back down from anybody. Still, don't go against Alexander Ovechkin, way out of your weight class. But Svechnikov, again, a lot of people, they know the offensive ability in this kid, but the fact that he brings those peripherals with the hits and the shots and the penalty minutes, just like your boy Rasmus Dahlin, absolutely tremendous, fantastic fantasy hockey pick, no matter where it is, even the fact that he's injured right now.
And I think he will be back. The ACL surgery recovery is obviously something that's concerning. Still a top 50 fantasy piece, in my opinion, Steele.
Oh,
you can't be really waiting on this guy much past maybe the 4th or 5th round. I think he's going to get sniped up. In addition to just looking at how balanced this team is, back to front. And I'll just leave it at that because we have highlighted the Carolina Hurricanes very nicely. They even got more balance. They bring in Tony DeAngelo as well. Say what you will about that. But this offensive unit now on the blue line, they have Brent Burns. They got Brett Pesce. They got Jacob Slavin. This is going to be a team that gets wins. But you mentioned Alex Ovechkin. So why don't I get into my next player? And as much as, again, Alex Ovechkin is entering his age 38 season. He's going to be 38 years old this year. 1,300 plus games played. That's not even including the playoffs. But this guy is still an absolute stud. And when he's bringing almost 300 shots on net, Steele, he had 42 goals last year and 188 hits. And I want to hit you with this take. You and I have talked a lot about Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin. And what do you do with two of the biggest pieces and names, not only in hockey, but in fantasy hockey over the last better part of 2 decades? It gets tricky. In the fantasy keeper dynasty side of things, do you move on and get a whole bunch of pieces, or do you just continue to hold on to them because they are so valuable? Alex Ovechkin, I think this year, Steele, knowing that window is basically about to slam shut on the Washington Capitals, I think you're going to see Ovi absolutely go off this year. And I'm not saying 55 plus goals. I'm not saying 100 plus points, but I'm going to say right there in that 40 to 45 goal realm, I'm going to say more points, and I think you're just going to see him beast off with his body, and I just think another really, really good year on tap for Ovi.
I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more.
I thought you were going to disagree.
No, 38-year-old, the Alexander, the Great 8, just looking at, he's going into his 19th season in the NHL, even the first 10 or 11 seasons in the league. This guy was putting up over 230 hits a season on top of the 100 plus points. The penalty minutes are there throughout his entire career too. The power play
he had 528 shots, Steele, in 2009. That's crazy.
That's insane. That's absolutely insane. He brings it all, even at 38 years old. So it's absolutely incredible to see both Crosby and Alex Ovechkin just, age like fine wine right now and continuing the success in the NHL. Both absolute studs who can get drafted, obviously, in the third. If you want to take them in the second, take them in the second. I can't disagree with that whatsoever because of all the peripherals Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby bring. I got one more player on this list that I want to talk about. Do you have something to add to that?
Only this. Ovechkin, Stanley Cup winner, Calder winner, 12-time All-Star, 3-time Hart Trophy, and 9 Rocket Richards. And let's put a cherry, the 2018 Conn Smythe winner as well, Steele. I love talking about Sid and Ovi. Just credit and hats off.
Absolute superstars in the NHL. It's going to be a sad day. We just lost Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci. Who knows how much longer we've got Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby in the NHL. Love. Krejci's got to get that love too. He's got to get that love. He's been in the league for a long time. He deserves it, but it's going to be very, very sad day when both Ovechkin and Crosby, play their last game and hang up the jersey, hang up the gloves and the skates. So we're going to take every single day that we can watch them, just be joyous and super happy that we get to watch them every single time and for the next couple of years. Thank you so much. We got one more player. I got one more player. I think Flip's got one more player in the chamber as well. But this episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Thank you so much. Like I said, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's right, $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. You can't go wrong with that deal from FanDuel. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get into the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, a lot more. You know me. I love those same-game parlays. I love those 16-team parlays in the NFL. Throw $1 on there. You never know what's going to happen. You can win a boatload of money. So make sure you're joining FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Like Flip and I have said, thank you so much for getting us to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Continue to do so. Hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button, leave a 5-star review. And again, if you want to be a part of the Fantasy Hockey League, Fantasy Hockey Listener League, continue to DM us. We'll get you down on the list. The cutoff date is September 20th. It is today. So make sure you get your name in there so we can get you added onto the draw. And hopefully your name gets picked up. We really appreciate it, and we are very excited for this upcoming fantasy hockey season.
Steele, the fact that we also have so much interest in the leagues, we've had so much traction over the last couple of weeks. Not only does it tell me we're a couple of lucky guys with a whole bunch of support and love out there from our listeners, but that we're just lucky to be able to do this every day. Hopefully it's going to help me bounce back this year from my fantasy performance. I love talking hockey with you every single day. I need the puck to drop on this season so bad. I don't think I've ever been more excited, Steele. And I've got 2 players left, actually. One of them was going to make honorable mention, which, and maybe I'll take some heat for putting Tim Stutzle on this list. But I think he's starting to really play with edge. 114 hits last year, 54 penalty minutes, 228 shots. And yeah, I know 50 block shots doesn't exactly win you your league, but it's a lot higher than some other guys who also bring Steele 90 points last season. I know this might be a bit of a stretch, and he was going to make my honorable mentions, but I think he's going to continue to grow his physical game. Is that why he's in the lineup? Of course not. But the fact that he's starting to also really lead by example, I love Tim Stutzle's game. You know that. And I think I'm buying into what's happening in Ottawa, as much as that hurts me to say. I think this group is going to put up a lot of points this year.
Yes.
I was a little bit bold on the prediction last year. It came to fruition. I think 90 points again is right in his realm. I say the blocks go up. I say the hits go up. And that, for me, makes him a banger league beauty. And I know that one's a stretch.
Look, I have no complaints on this take whatsoever. It just goes to show that Tim Stutzle, he can talk the talk, but he actually does follow it up and walks the walk as well. Yep. I agree with you. He's got that banger league beauty, and now he's getting more physical, and goes back to what he said a couple of weeks ago in an interview. He just wants to dominate at both ends of the ice, all around. Every time he's on the ice and he's playing. So goes to show you what Tim Stutzle's mindset's going into this upcoming season as well. I got one last player. I'll try to make it real quick. Ivan Barbashev of the Vegas Golden Knights. Another fantastic year between St. Louis and Vegas. 29 points in 59 games for the Blues. 16 points in 23 games after getting traded to the Golden Knights. As of right now, again, these are pre-lines right now before the season starts, but it looks like he's playing on the top line with Jack Eichel and Jonathan Marchessault. He went from playing 16 minutes of average ice time for the Blues up to 17 and a half minutes playing with Vegas in those 23 games, and then obviously in the playoffs as well. So if he's playing on that top line with Eichel and Marchessault, this could mean a tremendous boost in production offensively for his game. This team is already full of physicality players. They all play mean. They all play hard. But if Barbashev, again, is playing on that top line and playing top line minutes, expect him to do most of the dirty work, going hard to the net, going to those corners, banging away, getting the puck, and trying to feed Marchessault or Jack Eichel. He'll be first on the forecheck, battling in those corners. I like him a lot. I was very impressed with him in the playoffs last year. Another great addition from the Vegas Golden Knights, and that's one of the reasons, again, on top of those other superstars they already had, of why they won the Stanley Cup last year, adding those depth players like Barbashev.
Barbashev was one of the best deadline ads out there,
he
if not
was.
arguably the best after 18 points in 22 games for that cup run, 64 hits and 18 penalty minutes as well. And I know in the playoffs, you're not really looking at penalty minutes. Actually, you'd probably like to see 0 on his card, but it just shows you he gets a little chippy. He's not afraid to mix it up. I knew he was going to be on this list for you, and he should be if he gets to play with Jack Eichel. Also, that left side in Vegas is the side that'll be open for him. I know he's probably a natural centerman, if anything.
Yeah.
But Ivan Barbashev is going to probably get a look with Jack Eichel, and that actually pushes him up the board in a big way for me. And I love that you highlighted this player. Would I like to see him shoot the puck a little bit more? Yes. And I think actually, if he gets a shot with Eichel, he'll probably be counted on to do just that if he's going to be getting those offensive looks. I got one more guy, Steele, and I know the injury to Evander Kane was a freak one. It obviously impacted his ability to bring it on the ice.
Has to be on the list, though.
He has to be on this list. And when he's healthy and when he's playing his game, there's not many people that can bring the physical side with the high offensive talent, because he really, really does throw his body around. He gets fights. He gets penalty minutes. 124 hits last year in 41 games, 53 penalty minutes. And I've said this a few times. When you can get a player that can bring the offense that Evander Kane has, and then the Edmonton Oilers have a 7 or 8 goal night, a few of those are coming this year for sure. Yeah. Evander Kane has a fight. He has a misconduct. Those are the nights that guys like this will take your team over the top. Obviously, those are hard to predict, but it's not hard to predict when a guy with Evander Kane's short fuse also has the offensive ability. He is a banger league beauty that for sure is worth a look in every single format. It's only the injury question, or else he'd be way higher up the board. And I think now that he's had all the time to recover, a full off season, ready to go healthy, I think you're going to see him in the mix in the top 6 in a very big way in Edmonton.
He has to be. And, there's not really much you can do with the injury that happened. No. He goes down, Maroon is trying to just skate by him, catches him on the wrist. Very fluky, freak injury that you can never, ever predict in those situations. But Evander Kane does deserve some love for the Banger League Beauty list. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you're tuning in Monday through Friday. Episodes 7 o'clock in the morning on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. So hit that subscribe, hit the follow button. We appreciate all the love and support you show us. And again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there. And we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.